Sofia, did America get it right?
I think they did, and I think I did too.
Jessica's story?
She performed, and I immediately knew, like, there's something special about her. You know, her story was amazing.
When the camera stopped rolling and the crowd's cheers faded, Sofia Vergara leaned closer to the microphone and said something that left everyone frozen.
20 years later, she was pregnant.
Are you happy she just managed to keep that baby girl in?
I was really nervous because you know what could happen at any moment. I think she doesn't have much to go, so we need to keep her safe.
Moments later, whispers spread through the studio, and within hours, the world was talking. What did Sofia confess about Jessica Sanchez that stunned the judges, silenced the audience, and changed everything we thought we knew about their bond? Stay with us to know. The girl who never gave up. Jessica Sanchez's story is one that feels almost unreal. At 30 years old, she stands as a symbol of strength, talent, and unshakable determination. But long before the fame, long before the flashing lights and standing ovations, there was a little girl who simply loved to sing. In 2006, a 10-year-old Jessica walked nervously onto the stage of America's Got Talent. Her voice trembled at first, but within seconds, something magical happened. The crowd fell silent, and even the judges leaned forward, captivated by the tiny girl with a voice far too powerful for her age. That was the beginning of a dream that would change her life forever. That first performance didn't just mark the start of her career. It ignited something deep within her, a fire that would keep burning through every challenge, heartbreak, and rejection that came her way. From that day on, Jessica knew she wanted to live for music. She practiced for hours, pouring every ounce of emotion into her voice. She wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing meaning. Every song, every note, was her way of telling the world that she had something to say. But the road to success was not easy. Growing up in the spotlight meant learning how cruel the industry could be. She faced rejection, disappointment, and long stretches of silence where it seemed like the world had forgotten her. Yet Jessica never stopped singing. When others gave up, she pushed harder. She performed in small venues, posted covers online, and kept believing that her time would come again. Then, 2 decades after that first audition, it finally did. Jessica returned to America's Got Talent for its 20th season. But this time, she was not the shy little girl who once trembled before the judges. She was a woman who had lived through life's storms and come back stronger. Her return was not about proving herself to others. It was about reclaiming the part of her that had once been lost. When she stepped onto that stage again, the audience rose to their feet. The judges were stunned by her maturity, her control, and the emotion in every note she sang. Jessica had grown, not just as a performer, but as a person. And then comes a moment so powerful, so personal, that even Sofia Vergara was left speechless. The golden buzzer moment that changed everything. Sofia Vergara has always been more than just a television personality. Long before joining America's Got Talent, she was already a global star, loved for her confidence, humor, and magnetic charm. From her early days as a model in Colombia to her rise in Hollywood, Sofia built a reputation as a woman who knew what she wanted and never hesitated to speak her mind. When she joined the judging panel of AGT, she brought that same fiery spirit and honesty that had made her one of the most admired women in entertainment. As a judge, Sofia was known for her sharp instincts. She could see beyond the performance and sense the story behind the voice, the struggle behind the smile. Her golden buzzer moments were rare, but when she pressed it, it always came from the heart. That is exactly what happened the day Jessica Sanchez stepped onto the AGT stage once again after 2 decades. Jessica's audition began quietly. The crowd was curious but unsure, remembering her as the child who had once graced the stage years ago. As soon as she began to sing, though, everything changed. Her voice carried not just power, but emotion so raw that it seemed to fill every corner of the theater. The judges exchanged glances, stunned by the maturity and control she displayed. Sofia's expression softened as she leaned forward, completely mesmerized. As the final note faded, there was a moment of stillness. Then, without hesitation, Sofia rose from her seat, her hand hovering over the golden buzzer. The next second, the sound of gold confetti and cheers filled the room. Jessica stood frozen in disbelief as the golden rain poured down around her. Tears streamed down her face, and Sofia walked up to embrace her. "You are incredible," Sofia whispered. "You deserve this moment." That golden buzzer wasn't just a gesture, it was a statement. It was Sofia telling the world that Jessica's voice and story mattered. It meant she believed in her not only as a singer, but as a fighter who had refused to give up on her dream. The clip went viral within hours. Fans flooded social media with messages of love and admiration. They called Sofia's choice one of the most emotional moments in AGT history. That single act transformed Jessica's journey, sending her straight into the live rounds and turning her story into a national phenomenon. But what the world didn't know was that this golden buzzer moment was just the beginning. Because just before season 20 officially began, something happened behind the scenes that would change Jessica's life forever. The pregnant performer who defied all odds. When Jessica Sanchez auditioned for America's Got Talent season 20, she had no idea that her life was about to change in the most unexpected way. Just a few days after her audition, she discovered she was pregnant. For many, that news would have meant stepping back, taking time to rest, and preparing for the journey of motherhood. But Jessica was different. She looked at her growing belly, placed her hand over her heart, and said to herself, "This won't stop me." It was a moment of defiance and courage that would soon define her entire comeback story. Performing on a global stage like AGT is already one of the most demanding challenges any artist can face. The long rehearsals, the late nights, the pressure of millions of eyes watching your every move, it can break even the strongest spirits. But for Jessica, the challenge was double. She was not only fighting for her dream, but also carrying new life inside her. Every time she sang, it was as if two hearts were beating in perfect rhythm. As the competition went on, the physical strain began to show. By the time Jessica reached the quarterfinals, she was 8 months pregnant. Simple movements became harder, and standing for long rehearsals left her breathless. There were moments when she thought about quitting. The exhaustion, the sleepless nights, and the weight of expectation pressed down on her. But every time she looked at the audience, she remembered why she had come back, to prove that motherhood and ambition could walk side by side. Then came the night that would change everything. Jessica took the stage to perform Ordinary by Alex Warren. As the first notes filled the air, the entire theater fell silent. Her voice, filled with emotion and vulnerability, told a story far deeper than the lyrics themselves. She sang not just as a contestant, but as a mother, a fighter, and a dreamer. Her performance wasn't perfect in a technical sense. It was perfect because it was real. Tears filled the eyes of the judges and many in the audience. They could feel her strength and her pain. When the final note faded, the crowd erupted into applause. Sofia Vergara rose to her feet, visibly emotional. Simon Cowell nodded in quiet admiration. In that moment, Jessica had done more than deliver a song. She had shown the world that courage knows no limits, even when life throws its hardest tests. But what happened next would change everything. Because it wasn't her song that transformed her fate. It was something that no one saw coming. The praise, the pressure, and the behind-the-curtain struggle. As the bright lights of America's Got Talent glowed on stage, the audience cheered and cameras rolled. Sofia Vergara sat at the judges' table, her eyes fixed on Jessica Sanchez. It was the quarterfinals, and Jessica, heavily pregnant, had just delivered a performance that left everyone breathless. When the last note faded, Sofia leaned into her microphone, her voice filled with emotion. "You are incredible," she said. "You are not only singing beautifully, but you are showing the world what true strength looks like." Her words echoed across the theater, and for a moment, Jessica's eyes shimmered with tears of relief. But behind Sofia's smile, there was a storm of emotions. Being a judge on AGT wasn't just about pressing buzzers and giving compliments. It came with immense pressure. Every decision she made could shape someone's life. For Jessica, that pressure was even greater. This was a woman standing on stage with a baby growing inside her, risking exhaustion and pain to chase her dream. Sofia admired her deeply, but she also feared making a mistake. What if her praise created unrealistic expectations? What if Jessica pushed herself too far trying to live up to them? Sofia had always believed that talent should speak for itself, but this season felt different. The audience wasn't just watching a singer. They were watching a story of resilience unfold in real time. As a public figure, Sofia knew that her words carried weight. One wrong comment could be twisted by the media. One wrong judgment could spark controversy. She wanted to be fair, to be honest, but also kind. That balance was harder to maintain than anyone outside the show could ever imagine. Behind the curtains, away from the cameras and applause, the tension was even more intense. The judges whispered during breaks, discussing performances, odds, and public reactions. Producers debated storylines. Some crew members worried that Jessica's pregnancy might affect the show's pace, while others were rooting for her with all their hearts. Sofia could sense the energy shift each time Jessica walked in. People cared about her more than they cared about any other contestant that season. But Sofia also felt something else, a growing connection. She saw her younger self in Jessica, a woman trying to prove herself in a world that constantly judged. That bond began to weigh on her conscience. One evening, after another breathtaking performance, Sofia couldn't hold back any longer. As the audience left and the cameras went dark, she quietly walked over to Jessica, took her hand, and led her to the side of the stage. Her voice trembled slightly as she began to speak. What she revealed in that private moment would leave everyone stunned, from judge to confidant. Sofia Vergara stood near the edge, watching Jessica Sanchez gather her things after another breathtaking performance. Something in Sofia's heart stirred. She had praised Jessica countless times before the cameras, but tonight felt different. There was something personal tugging at her, something that went beyond admiration for talent. Sofia called Jessica over. Away from the crew and the lights, they sat in one of the empty dressing rooms. Sofia took a deep breath before speaking, her voice soft and sincere. "You know," she began, "I see myself in you." Jessica looked surprised. She had never expected a confession from someone like Sofia, the glamorous, confident woman who always seemed unshakable. But as Sofia continued, her words revealed a side few had ever seen. She spoke about her early days in Hollywood, about feeling underestimated and constantly compared to others. She admitted that behind the laughter and confidence the world saw, there were years of fear and self-doubt. "There were times I thought I would never make it," Sofia said, her eyes glistening. "Times I felt like my voice didn't matter." Jessica sat quietly, listening, her heart pounding. For the first time, she saw Sofia not as a judge, but as a woman who had fought her own battles. Jessica's reaction was one of shock and deep empathy. She had imagined Sofia's life to be perfect. But now she realized that success often carried hidden scars. Their conversation turned gentle and honest. Jessica shared her own fears of failing, of being judged, of not being strong enough to carry both her dreams and her unborn child. Sofia reached for her hand and smiled. "You're stronger than you think," she said softly. Then, Sofia made a promise. She told Jessica that she would always have her support, not just as a judge, but as a friend. She offered to guide her through the chaos that often followed fame, to help her navigate the spotlight with grace and strength. It was a moment of rare authenticity, a genuine bond forming between two women who had both fought their way through doubt and pressure. But as the conversation drew to a close, Sofia hesitated for a moment. Her eyes lowered and her tone shifted. There was something else she wanted to say, something she had held back for years. That night, her next words would reveal a second confession, one that would change everything between them forever. The confession that rocked the judges' table. It started innocently enough, with each judge giving feedback on the contestants' latest performances. But when Jessica Sanchez's name came up, Sofia fell quiet. Simon noticed immediately. "You've been quiet, Sofia," he said, leaning forward. "What are you thinking?" There was a long pause before she finally spoke. "I need to admit something," she said softly. Her voice trembled slightly, enough to make everyone stop and listen. Sofia looked down for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Then she lifted her gaze and said, "At first, I underestimated Jessica. I thought her story was touching, but I didn't believe she could carry this competition. I was wrong." Her words hung in the air like a weight. Howie blinked in surprise. Mel B frowned, unsure how to respond. And Simon, the man who rarely showed emotion, simply nodded, as if he had known it all along. Sofia went on, explaining how she had battled her instincts. "I've seen so many contestants come and go, and I thought I could predict who would rise. But Jessica changed something in me. She made me see what real strength looks like." Her honesty filled the room with an awkward silence. For a moment, no one spoke. It was rare for any judge to openly admit doubt, especially someone with Sofia's confidence. The discussion quickly turned emotional. Howie praised Sofia's courage, while Mel B argued that judges should always trust their first impressions. Simon simply smiled and said, "Sometimes it takes being wrong to realize what true talent is." It was a quiet but powerful moment. Yet behind the curtains, someone had overheard the entire exchange. Jessica, waiting in the wings for her next rehearsal, had paused just out of sight. She heard every word. As she stood there, her heart raced. She felt shock, gratitude, and confusion all at once. The truth had been spoken, and it changed how she saw everything, her journey, her purpose, and her connection with Sofia. But what Jessica didn't know was that this was only the beginning. Her future went far beyond kindness. Something much bigger was brewing behind closed doors. The legacy and the beginning of a new era. Jessica Sanchez's victory was more than just another moment of celebration on America's Got Talent. It marked the rise of a new era. Her journey, which began as a 10-year-old girl standing nervously on the same stage, had come full circle 20 years later. This time she stood there not only as a performer, but as a woman who had conquered doubt, heartbreak, and unimaginable pressure. Her story had everything: resilience, emotion, and the unshakable will to dream again. In the weeks following her win, the world could not stop talking about her. Social media exploded with emotion and admiration. Hashtags like #Jessica and #ThePregnantChampion trended across every platform. Fans around the world celebrated her not just as a winner, but as a symbol of courage and motherhood. People shared clips of her performances, writing heartfelt captions about how Jessica had inspired them to keep going through their own struggles. Mothers, in particular, called her a warrior, someone who had proven that being a mother did not mean putting your dreams aside. Jessica's story also changed how reality television was seen. She had achieved what few thought possible, winning a major talent competition while 9 months pregnant. It became a moment of history, one that redefined how the world viewed women in entertainment. No longer was pregnancy seen as a limitation. Jessica had transformed it into a source of strength. Behind the scenes, however, something even more meaningful was unfolding. Judges quietly promised to Jessica, one of the judges' words, "If you ever need anything, I'm here for you," was beginning to take shape. They saw in her not just talent, but a reflection of everything he valued in true artistry: persistence, passion, and heart. Their connection went beyond the stage. With her newfound fame, record offers began pouring in. Producers wanted to collaborate, shows wanted to feature her, and fans wanted to see what she would do next. But Jessica took her time, balancing motherhood with planning her next step. She wanted her comeback to mean something. As she prepared for the next chapter of her life, a new baby and a reborn career, whispers began to spread online. Fans started speculating about secret studio sessions, meetings with Simon, and possible collaborations. Could they be working on a joint project? Was this the start of something even bigger than AGT? One thing was certain: Jessica Sanchez's story was far from over. The new era she had begun was only just getting started. What are your thoughts on Sofia's thoughts about Jessica? Share in the comments and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.